just when you kind of start to get comfortable with their sound, they'll like slap you in the face with an entirely new genre. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Molly, and in this video I am going to be listening to the album The Real Thing by Faith No More. Now Faith No More is a band that I've been really enjoying getting into here on the channel. So far I've heard their 4th studio album Angel Dust, as well as their 5th studio album King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime. And for this video I decided to go back in their discography to their 3rd studio album The Real Thing that they released in 1989 and just check it out and see what I'm going to think of it. Alright, up first on The Real Thing is track 1 called From Out of Nowhere. I always forget just how distinct Mike Patton's voice is. It's just so unique. Every time I hear an album with Mike Patton on vocals, I immediately know that it's him. I love, it sounds like stringed instruments that they've put in the background. There's like this tiny little orchestral flair going on. And then that bass too is really shining through. I loved the whispered goodbye just there. That was track 1 from Out of Nowhere. There was like an oddly relaxing element to that song. It was very warm and sort of elastic with its sound, if that makes sense. And I loved the little flares in the background. I mentioned it sounded kind of orchestral at times, but they kept that pretty pushed back. It was very subtle, but it was just enough of a touch to make that song really stand out and have like a really unique tone to it. But continuing on with track 2 is Epic. So punchy compared to the last song. I love that bass yet again. Man, that's really shining through. I'm really enjoying how these verses are so abrupt, and then the chorus comes in and it's really smooth. It takes on almost an entirely different tone. Some piano here at the very end. That was track 2, Epic. The first track from Out of Nowhere was really smooth. It had like that more kind of uplifted sound to it. And then Epic kind of brought back that punchiness and that abruptness of the instrumentals on those verses. And with Faith No More, I'm always impressed with all of the little things that they do, the little details that they sprinkle in just to add so much texture to their music. Like they had those backup singers to kind of support Mike Patton's voice at times. The piano there toward the end was surprising too. I was not expecting that. And just all of these little touches and flourishes just made that track so incredibly entertaining to listen to. Alright, up next is track 3 called Falling to Pieces. Almost like borderline hip-hop at times with Mike's vocal delivery. My life is falling to pieces. From the bottom it looks like a steep incline. From the top another downhill slope of mine. Indecision clouds my vision. I just heard a little bit of piano there. They're kind of infusing that on this song again at times.
Somebody put me together. In the season, clouds my vision. Somebody put me together.
It sounds like they're using some background vocalists too, but it's very subtle. That was track 3, Falling to Pieces. I loved how the tone of that one kind of matched with what he was saying. It sounded like he was talking about his life kind of just collapsing around him and him falling to pieces, but he's kind of turning a blind eye to it, like he's choosing to ignore that his life is in shambles. And tonally, that song was just so relaxed. It almost had this jazzy, really laid back quality to it. And instrumentally, just a fantastic track yet again. I love how much the bass was emphasized, such a great tone to it. And again, it was like the little subtle melodic touches from the piano that really stood out as well. But up next is track 4 called Surprise, You're Dead. This sounds like it's off a completely different album. So much aggression coming at you. His vocals at times on this song, man, they're just so snarly. Alright, and then I guess we're just gonna have an explosion there at the end, but that was track 4, Surprise, You're Dead. That song certainly was a surprise, that's for sure. This is what I love about Faith No More. They always change up their albums. Just when you kind of start to get comfortable with their sound, they'll like slap you in the face with an entirely new genre. That song just had so much heaviness and punchiness to it, definitely more of a metal edge compared to the first 3 songs on this album. And Mike's voice, man, I loved how growly and intense it was at times. Up next is track 5 called Zombie Eaters. Alright, that was an unexpected flare from the guitar. His vocal delivery there on the word baby, it's like he spat it out at you. I love the percussion on this part. It just has such a pounding quality to it. This song just keeps getting more and more intense. Well, that was track 5, Zombie Eaters. Such an unexpected song that just kept throwing so much at you. It started off extremely restrained, very melodic. It had that amazing acoustic quality with the guitar and everything. And then sure enough, they brought the punchiness and that song just kind of ripped open with all of the aggression. His vocal delivery completely changed up. It was so smooth and restrained at the beginning. And then it's like he just started almost spitting at you or something. It just had such a cool delivery, so much punchiness to it. Alright, up next is track 6, which is the title track, The Real Thing. Man, I love the atmosphere of this at the start. It almost sounds like I'm in a cave or something. It's got like a very isolated feel to it, almost a coldness.
You can't refuse the embrace.
That guitar has such an interesting tone to it. There's something kind of clangy about it, almost like it's very unpolished or something, like it's about to fall apart.
Unseen glitter of life and feel the dirt, grief, anger and strife. You will leave me writhing on the floor. This is so unreal. What I feel, kick a plate on my own. Just go with your teeth.
On these more growly, aggressive vocals from Mike Patton, he almost sounds like Corey Taylor of Slipknot a tiny little bit. There's so much heaviness to his voice.
Hold on, just a little longer, stronger. It's a general victory that made me feel this way.
I'm loving this percussion too. There's such a lightness to it.
The perfect moment.
And then that guitar tone, it's so drawn out and fuzzy, and then it just comes to an abrupt stop.
You can't refuse the embrace.
All right, I guess we had a little hidden ending there at the very end, but that was track 6, The Real Thing. I think that is my favorite song on this album so far. I loved how pulled in they kept it at the start. It had this really cold, sort of ominous atmosphere to it, almost like you were underwater or in a cave or something. And then how they built that song up and then it just expanded and it brought all of the energy later on was so well done. Just a fantastic track, and for its 8-minute runtime, it held my attention for the entire time. All right, up next is track 7, which is called Underwater Love.
Walking down into the water, bubbling up to the surface.
It's funny how he's saying bubbling up to the surface, and these instrumentals kind of do have this really round quality to their sound, like they're really full sounding, and then it is almost like they're popping. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of what they sound like.
But I can't escape yourself. Hold me closer.
I loved that tone just there. I don't even know what that was, just such a beautiful clarity to it. And then even right here with this bass, there's almost a mutedness to it, almost mimicking being underwater. It sort of has that muffled quality to its tone. That was track 7, Underwater Love. So much variety with that one. They were just throwing on some really interesting sounds and just a very creative track. I thought it was really cool on that one too, how at times Mike's voice had this very laid back, almost bouncy quality to it. But then at times there was almost like this desperate quality to its tone as well, almost like he's trying so hard to hold on to someone's love. I thought that was really clever how they had that back and forth with his vocals, and the instrumentals were kind of doing that too. Like at times they had that more muffled underwater sound to them. But I'm going to continue on with track 8, which is called The Morning After.
Awakened by the sunlight. Yesterday's forgotten, the morning after.
I love how they're using this organ yet again. It's such a different tone from like the punchiness of the guitar and everything. It's so smoothed out and polished sounding. It's like you just got thrown into that chorus and then they just turned it off all of a sudden, and now we're back to this more smooth verse. That was track 8, The Morning After. Something very theatrical about that one. It just had so much drama to its sound. Like, they built it up so incredibly well. It kind of had this more restrained section at the beginning with that organ, it sounded like. And then the chorus just came in with so much energy, and it had that really sharp back and forth quality that they sometimes infuse in their music. It's like they just yank you back and forth so much. There's such a contrasting tonal quality to their songs. All right, moving on to track 9 is Woodpecker from Mars. Man, it's like you're galloping along on a horse. There's just so much speediness to this. See, this almost sounds like a violin, but there's something very electronic sounding to it as well. I don't know if it's like a keyboard or some sort of synth that they're using. I love the tone of that guitar. There's such a murkiness to it, and how they've slowed this song down now too. It's almost like you're sinking down. That was track 9, Woodpecker from Mars. I felt like I was riding a horse into a sci-fi epic or something. That's just the vibe that song had, something very cinematic about it. And purely instrumental too, there were not any vocals on that one, but I really loved how it had that like galloping speediness, and then it kind of just took a dive into this really murky, slowed down portion of the track. Alright, up next is track 10, which is called War Pigs. There's such a crashing quality to this one at the beginning here. It sounds like waves coming onto shore almost. There's such a hollowness to the sound of those drums. I'm really enjoying how on parts of this track it's very filled in and rich with instrumentals and everything, and then at other times it almost has this hollow quality. It's like they're in a way keeping it very minimal and they're only using certain sounds at certain points. I love the contrast of the bass here with that guitar.
On their knees, the war pigs crawling.
The instrumentals on this song just have a really beautifully clear tone to them. It's like they're really spread out with their sound. That was track 10, War Pigs. There was such an amazing punchiness to that one. I would say that was probably the most like rock metal sounding song on this album, just with the way the instrumentals and everything were being played. They had such a heavy impact to their sound. But like I mentioned though, I really enjoyed on that one how they would kind of fill in the sound at times, and then at other points they knew when to stop it, and it almost had this empty hollowness to it. Just such a cool ambiance almost. Alright, moving on to the final song on The Real Thing is track 11 called Edge of the World. I loved the piano just there. That was so playful.
Would you like some candy? And we'll stroll to the edge of the wild. Consider and
Man, that bass just really shone through there for a second.
let me see those putties.
Alright, we got a little saxophone going on now. Well, that was track 11, Edge of the World. A very relaxed, jazzy quality to that one. And again, it almost sounded like it could have been taken from the soundtrack of a musical or something. It had a very dramatic flair to it. He was talking about, it sounded like almost grooming a girl to love him and then kind of getting her caught up in this fantasy and then maybe killing her, like walking off the edge of the world together to their death. I don't know, that's kind of my interpretation of it, just something kind of creepy about it in a sense. And definitely a unique way to bring this album to a close. Well, that concludes my reaction to The Real Thing, the third studio album from Faith No More. I always love reacting to these Faith No More albums. They just bring so much variety to their music, and this album was definitely no exception. Track 2, Epic, is definitely a favorite of mine with one listen. That one just had this amazing punchy verse, and then the chorus would smooth out and take on this really relaxed, laid-back tone. Also, track 5, Zombie Eaters, was really fascinating. How restrained that was at the beginning, and then just all of a sudden they brought so much energy to that song. And I think my favorite on this record is track 6, the title track. That one just had an amazing atmosphere to it. They kept it so pulled in at times, but this entire record was absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad it's another Faith No More record that I can check off my list of ones to hear. And definitely let me know in the comments which of their albums you want me to listen to next. And yeah, as usual, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.